So, hey, good afternoon, Liz.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. This is Liz Butts from Sprinkle Pops, and this is our massive warehouse of sprinkles. So I want to hear, and I asked this question before, but I really would love to just to hear the inception of your business and how you got started with on this crazy path.
It's my favorite story to tell. I'd be happy. Um, yeah, so I founded the company about 7 years ago, and I've always done cake decorating on the side as a hobby business. I did work in oil and gas for 7 or 8 years in finance. But my goal was always to quit my job to be a professional cake decorator. I wanted to make just like really extravagant wedding cakes, and I was very good at it. I mean, not to toot my own horn, but I was very good at it. But I was making a baby shower cake one day and I couldn't find the sprinkles I was looking for. So I ended up kind of sourcing in white sprinkles in like smaller quantities, and I dyed them to the right colors in bowls in my kitchen. And from there, I just very specifically remember texting my husband while I was at work the next day or something and being like, hey, I think I could sell these. And he was like, yeah, go for it. And I feel like it's like my favorite story to tell because like the joke's on him because he was like, oh yeah, your little sprinkle business. And now we sell millions of dollars of sprinkles every year. So, kind of the rest is history. I launched the business 3 months later and I quit my job within 8 months. And I've been doing this full time since January of 2018.
That's amazing. Wow, what a story. So I have to ask you, during COVID, did that help your business or
It it did actually. So
yeah?
everyone was at home baking. It was like a huge thing during COVID. And so our sales that was like a really big growth year for us. So like in our first couple years, we were basically tripling year over year. And COVID was then like our biggest year. And then like many e-commerce businesses, we did kind of contract after everyone kind of went back to their regular lives. But yeah, it was a huge year for us, and a lot of struggles too, because we had to figure out how to space our employees, and we were technically considered like a food manufacturer, so we could stay open, but there were lots of extra precautions that we had to take. And oh, it was a long year for sure for everyone, I know.
Yeah, that is crazy. And it's so interesting. If a business is tripling every year, how do you plan for that scaling and hiring employees and all the things? How did you like
I'm being
navigate
really
that?
honest with you. I think in the last few years, I wouldn't say this year moving forward, but up until that point, it was kind of like a jump out of the airplane and build your parachute on the way down type thing. So I didn't have a really good plan. I was just like, I am just going to sell as many sprinkles as possible, and I'm going to figure out the rest while I go. So we've had lots of pain points, and I think really up until last year, we even weren't even manufacturing in the most efficient way possible. I think my husband and I, this is like a story that like it makes me sick to tell it, but also like it was really satisfying when we were like, well, if we just only ever produce 100-pound batches, we would save over $100,000 on labor a year. And it took us 6 years in business to kind of realize like, oh, we shouldn't be producing these small batches. They are costing us money. So it's interesting the stuff that you learn when you're really starting from nothing.
Wow, that's amazing. So I want to make sure I understand this. So basically, you were being too custom
Yes.
for people.
Yes. So, and that's really what our claim to fame is. Like, if you go on our website at any given time, we have over 100 sprinkle mixes. And I always say, like, I've kind of adopted Jeff Bezos, like, unlimited shelf space of the internet, right? That's what Amazon is. And so we wanted to take that model on a smaller scale and do it in sprinkles. But the problem is if you're only producing 20-pound batches, you can produce the same time frame 100 pounds. So why are we
Wow.
producing 20 pounds at a time when we could be producing so much more? And some of the answer is like it costs money to stock that much inventory if you're not going to sell it right away and all the things. But when you really go back and do the math, you're like, oh, well, I've been spending a lot more money on labor than I needed to.
That's amazing. Okay, so as an employer, tell me what are your key takeaways over these last few years as an employer that you would give advice about?
I would say the thing that I have learned and I'm still working on the most is delegation. I think
Hmm.
as a small business owner, you get sucked into doing so many of the actual just day-to-day tasks as opposed to taking those steps back and looking at how much money you could be saving on labor.
Ah,
And so one of the things that I think I've really learned over the years, and like I said, I'm still learning, is like, how can I trust my team to handle some of this for me so that I can really be a bigger picture person. And that's something that I personally do still struggle with, because it's hard, especially with a creative business where I'm still the one who's designing all the sprinkles. And when we're doing sales calls with companies, I'm the creative director of all of this. And so on top of payroll and taxes and financial planning, like I still have to help with all that stuff too. So delegation. This is my biggest piece of advice.
that's brilliant. And so are you still able to do what you like to do? Because you have this creative gene, obviously. And
I think so. It's funny because I still get to design all the mixes, and I really enjoy pitching to customers and helping them solve their creative problems. Like that's really fun for me. And really probably in the last year, I've really kind of stepped into my own of like, I am an expert in sprinkles. Like no one knows more than I do. I There's so much knowledge you never knew existed about sprinkles that I didn't even realize. And I think having these sales calls over the past couple of years, and I'm starting to realize like, wow, I really, really know my stuff. But I do still even get to like, I talked about how we dye sprinkles. We still do
mm,
that process here. So like a standard
mm,
large scale manufacturer may only offer 12 colors. We offer 35, and we do Pantone color matching, which is why some people come to us on these big projects. But I still get to go into production and talk with my team, and they'll be like, oh, I can't get this maroon just the right tone. And so I'll come in and use my Eagle color vision to be like, I mean, add like a teaspoon more of purple or blue or whatever. And so I do still get to like kind of play with that stuff. But it was funny, I was joking with my operations manager just this morning because she was asking my opinion on something. I was like, I haven't dyed sprinkles in like 3 years. Like, you're the expert at this point. Like, you tell me.
well, and clearly your operations manager is somebody you trust, because that part of the
Yes.
process you could actually let go and let them do that. And
Hmm.
obviously it's been successful.
Yes. No, she's been with me since 2019, and she manages everything end to end in our production room. And like literally I would never have to walk in there if I didn't want to, although sometimes I do just to take a break. My
That's
employees are
wonderful.
like, they get so nervous that I'm walking around. I'm like, I'm just bored. I don't feel like working right now. So I'm just going to come play with sprinkles for a few minutes.
That's great. I like it. So how about hiring employees? What do you look for when you're hiring somebody?
Yeah, I think I look for someone who likes creative things. The work that we have here is really repetitive. So you really
Hmm,
need to have like kind of the right kind of personality for that. So someone that doesn't mind that repetitive work, but also is going to be activated and excited about playing with sprinkles. Cause it sounds like a really fun job, and I think it is, but I think you really do like have to love the product to kind of handle the monotony of it for sure.
hmm.
And we try to do fun stuff. So we let them like design their own mixes sometimes and take them home. And but we do have goals to hit. They have to hit like hourly production numbers, and we have all these metrics that we're measuring people by. And so that and a good attitude. And if you're coming here and you're on time and you like to play with sprinkles, like you're gonna be okay here. Like it's a great place to work.
So is that one of the questions you ask, is do you like to play with sprinkles? Is that in your is that in your
I usually
advertising?
I usually try to dig into like, what do you do for fun? Like, do you like to draw, or like, those types of people. And I'm not saying that like that's like a prerequisite, but I find that those type of people do the best here if they have some sort of creative gene in them. And like we have lots of people who just like to bake on the side, and they're like, oh my gosh, I can come play with sprinkles all day. Like, sign me up.
Yeah, because you are, I think in any company, you have to have a way to motivate employees. And one of the ways is it's creativity is one. Um, it's autonomy is one, and then
Hmm.
buying into the greater cause, or vision of the company or the product is the third one. Those are the
We
three.
also we also tell everyone that they don't have to interact with any customers, and that's usually a pretty good selling point.
And who are your customers? Like what's your average customer look like? What do they do?
Yeah, so we were founded primarily as a direct to consumer business, and that still does make up the bulk of our customer base. So, we have one side of our customer base who is people who are like me, who do cake decorating or baking as a hobby, or even some sort of like side business or as their main business, but they're serious bakers, and that probably makes up 50% of our customers. And then your other 50% is I'm a mom, I'm throwing a Bluey birthday theme party, and Sprinkle Pop is the only place that I can find the exact right color of sprinkles. And so there's also those people who just casually bake, and that was one of the things that when I founded my business, I was talking to my husband about like, okay, sprinkles are really trendy. They were really, really trendy when I launched the business. But one of the things we talked about was like, what's the longevity of this is like, well, people are always going to have parties. Like they're always going to have cakes and desserts. And so there's always going to be a demand for sprinkles no matter what, even if they're not as trendy now as they were 7 years ago.
Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, I didn't think about the need for sprinkles, but there's definitely a need for sprinkles, right?
I think the dessert toppings, like dessert decorations business is like a $11 billion business or something like that. Like it's
Wow.
huge. Yeah.
Are you a US company or a global company now?
I would say we're still technically US. Like we do ship internationally. I've got like a distributor in Australia, but it's such a small percentage of our revenue that I don't think I would classify myself as a global company.
Technically, it's like the airport that has one international flight, so they're an
Yeah,
international airport.
exactly.
Yeah.
Totally.
All right. So if you started over again in your business, what's one thing that you would have done differently?
I would not have built my parachute on the way down from the airplane.
So a little more planning.
A little more planning. I think I've spent a lot of time getting caught up in the daily details and not seeing the bigger picture. So I definitely feel like I've made financial mistakes, taken on more debt than I'd like to in the business. So kind of like having to learn my lesson and dig myself out of that. Definitely that is a big thing. I don't feel like I was looking at what does this look like in 5 years and how am I going to get there? It was really just about getting day to day. And I don't think I really had that realization until probably 18 months ago. So there's a lot of lessons to be learned when you don't look at your business that way.
Yeah, that's great. So spending more time on the business than just being in it every day, right?
Totally. Exactly.
Yeah, which sounds easy,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah, exactly.
because the parachute, you're still trying to get the parachute together,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
So how about what about your corporate experience versus running your own business? How much of that translated and where were you surprised at what did translate?
So I worked in treasury management. So I managed the cash basically of an oil company for many years. And I think that translated in the sense that like I could do cash planning for the business. So I could build out extensive spreadsheets and all the math that I would use on a daily basis. Like that really translated into this position. But I think I also like not having that bigger picture of like being a CFO or being a corporate controller or something like that. I feel like those kind of pieces of the puzzle were missing. But I think overall, like the work ethic and like the stuff that I did learn, like I use every single day. And I think if I didn't have that, I would have been so much, I don't think I would have made it this far, to be honest, because I think my ability to like model things, even though I say like I didn't do a great job planning ahead, like it was still instrumental in getting me where I am.
Yeah, so thinking about cash flow and projecting where that was going to be or would be in the future and then trying to plan accordingly is a
Yeah,
really big thing.
backing into the poundage that we would need to buy and there's so much math involved in a sprinkle business.
I never would have thought that. See? So what's last question? What's your vision for your business in 10 years?
I'm happy to say that I have one, for one. Let's
Okay,
start there.
good. That's good.
So we're looking to scale up our B2B arm. So we've done a really good job in the direct to consumer industry, and I think we know where we want to take that. So my product specifically lends itself to licensing really well. So that's kind of a space that we eventually want to dip our toes into. But licensing does cost a lot of money. So on the flip side, we are really expanding our presence in retail, big box stores, also working with like major dessert chains and trying to bring in some of these larger scale projects that are just, even though they're large and a little scary, they are actually significantly easier to handle than managing 100 SKUs on a website at any given time. And the money comes in much quicker. So that's kind of where we're looking to scale. Right now, our B2B probably sits at about 15% of our revenue. And within the next 3 years, we would like to sit at about 50%.
Okay.
We're about a $3 million a year company. And by 2028, we'd like to be about a $15 million a year company. So we've got some plans in place to get us there. We'll see if that pans out, but that's the plan.
I like it. I like it. You're dreaming big. That's good. Well, for somebody that's tripled their business that many times, it seems like it's very realistic. So, and it seems
It's
like,
feasible for sure.
yeah, you got the attitude to do it. And you got a lot of knowledge and know-how. So Liz, Sprinkle Pops, you can go online, find them at sprinklepop.shop, right?
Yep.
Sprinklepop.shop. I've thoroughly enjoyed our time together, Liz. Thanks for the wisdom. I learned a lot, and I of course had a lot of fun. And I mean, come on, it's sprinkles.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me.
All right, thank you.
Bye.